So that failure opened the door to the knowledge piece on the other side of the other side of that. So I don't think, you could fail a million times, but it takes one idea, thought, concept, or good partner to be very successful at whatever that next idea is. And you can't just say, I have no more ideas, I'm just going to go work at Starbucks, or I'm going to go be a leasing agent or something like that. Like, that's fine, nothing wrong with it. But if you have that entrepreneurial background, be prepared to make some stupid choices.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grenzig.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grenzig. With me, as always, is John Cohen. How's it going, bud?
We are rolling. We had an unexpected cancellation, so it gives us the opportunity to really bullshit and talk, and talk what people like to hear, I think. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I like doing it with no guests. I think it's interesting, and people get a little bit of a different listen and maybe something else out of it. But I am always curious. So if you're listening to this and you like it when John and I just do it alone, please just shoot me a DM on Instagram or something. Let me know that you listen to it. Let me know if you like it or don't like it. Don't just everybody tell me you like it. If you don't like it and you like the guests, let me know too. We always love to hear feedback. If you want to let John know, you can, but always curious to get that. But wanted to jump right in because we were actually just talking right before we hopped on, and we always end up talking about something and then started going down. I said, stop, let's jump on the podcast and talk about it. And it kind of came up, just a little bit of backstory. We're just talking about the move down. And as I came down, just started looking at other things to do, right? Because I just have the 16 unit, own and manage it. But, managing a 16 unit doesn't take that much time out of the week. So really looking at doing other things. I bought Zach Booth's course on wholesaling. We were just talking about that and just exploring other things. John's done some stuff with land, with mobile homes, just kind of always exploring other avenues. So we were just kind of talking about some of that stuff and figured just be a really good place to start. So, I know one of the things that we were just talking about was kind of the shitty side of wholesaling, or the unattractive side of wholesaling. It was just I don't know, just don't like dealing with the sellers, don't like driving around for dollars. Not that it's the end of the world. I actually don't mind driving because I like seeing the neighborhoods. And it's been really interesting moving to a new market and being able to drive around and learn neighborhoods, learn streets. Because, being up in New York and looking at a market on a map, coming down a handful of times a year, you don't really get a ton of insight, but, you learn a decent amount. Just running around different areas, driving different routes, and now, driving for dollars, really understanding neighborhoods and markets has been super, super interesting. But the talking to sellers, doing the mailers, trying to get people to, transact or even be interested has just been super draining. So.
Yeah, I can speak to that too, because I know that even on the land stuff that I've been messing around with, and 2020 was my experiment year, and it ended up being really fun. But it's that consistency of downloading the data, putting in a mailer, dealing with sellers. And, I agree. I actually like the driving around. I've said it on our podcast, and I've said it a million times, you really want to drive for dollars, drive on Saturday mornings, right? I used to, when I first started doing real estate, I would download a map of a neighborhood, Mineola or Westbury or Carl Place. And on Google Maps, it has it. I would just drive a street, highlight and highlight and highlight. And if I found a house, I put a dot on the block. And when I got back to, there was no such thing as these deal machines or anything like that, right? It was, I would take a picture, and then, I'd say, okay, 423. And then I would write the street down or whatever. But the thing that people don't talk about is that consistency on the sales side. It's not, it's when you're trying to buy someone's primary residence, whether you're mailing absentee owners or mailing tax delinquent or mailing all these special and different types of lists, you still got time frame. there are times where you send out a letter and a guy responds and you buy the house and it takes less than a month. But more often than not, if the guy responds to your letter, it means you might have overpriced it. It means that you were the highest offer that he got.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely did you catch him at the right time. So the way that I tell people to go about it is, you got to find that yin and yang or that person that loves that component of that business. So it's, if you want to be a wholesaler, you can run your whole business yourself. And that's how a lot of people start doing real estate. But there's also the level of, I got other stuff to do. I really don't love it. So it's easy to put it on the back burner. And that's what happens with real estate. And that's what happens with a lot of people trying new things, is that if they don't love it and they don't have that like passion for it, they take it and they put it on the back burner. I'll get to that. I'll get to that. I'll get to that. Mm-hmm. So when you do bring in the person that loves that component, that loves pounding the phone, that loves meeting with people, that loves going to these shitty houses and talking to people, that frees up your time to do what you're doing and then focus on the piece of the business that you like. And that's really the partnership that I think benefits wholesaling and any of those types of strategies in real estate a lot better. It's not unsimilar to a balance sheet partner, a financial partner on a multifamily syndication. But if you can be willing to partner and not want to make all the money yourself, and if you could find the right employee or the right partner that could come in and take that off the table, you're going to be more successful. Yeah, you're going to have to give something up, but at the same time, you're also going to be able to exponentially grow, because you're going to take one piece of the business and put it in someone's plate. And if they're good at it, great. If they fail, fire them, bring in someone new. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying to dive into a partnership, but you can definitely expedite the way you go about things, which I think is very important in real estate. I don't think real estate is a solo sport. I think it's a team sport.
It's funny you say put on the back burner, because I've completely done that the past month and a half. I have been doing other things. It's not like I'm just sitting here twiddling my thumbs all day. So it's not like I was just completely procrastinating, but I could have easily made some more time to do it. The past couple of weekends, I haven't really done anything, just like hanging out with people or doing nothing. And that's fine. I'm okay with that, right? Like, I'm not sitting here complaining by any means, but it's the same thing. It's like, I don't mind driving, but I don't love pounding the phone. I don't love talking to unrealistic sellers all day. It goes back to the stockbroker days where it was, you make 600 calls a day and you open up a handful of accounts a month. It's like a 0.0001% closing ratio. Just like I left that job for a reason. Part of it was the industry, but part of it was, that lifestyle. So it's like, yeah, I've just completely, and I recognize it. I've completely put on the back burner. Like, Farber texted me yesterday. He was like, or was it this morning actually? He's like, oh, how's the wholesaling going? I was like, it's not really even going. But it's like, it is what it is. Right. So that's where, we were talking. I was like, there's a kid I just met out of Orlando who's doing some stuff, and he wants to get more into the ownership side. And for me, it's like, okay, if he can find deals and put that work in, and we can have a partnership there, if I can also help him out on the ownership side and also take some weight off of, for like finding the buyer, pricing out the comps, going through the transaction, those are things, and if it needs capital too, right? Those are some things that I can bring to the table as well. So I've kind of taken a hard look at it as well and been like, is this really the best route for me? Like, I'm debating about whether to continue go that route of like driving for dollars and stuff like that, or actually looking at like smaller multifamily and being like that deal finder, wholesaler, flipper type person, where it's like, okay, find a duplex for, $75,000 to $200,000, and either just, have multiple strategies to go with it, whether it's a hard money lender, private money, wholesale, take it down myself, use it with debt, like, have those strategies where it's like, okay, I don't have to necessarily rely on one thing, where if I find a single family house tomorrow, I'm not buying it unless it's like an unreal location. I'm not buying it. Like, I have no desire to own a single family house. And I know, right, people, single family duplex, what's the big difference? There is a little bit of a different sale process as you look at it, in my opinion. There's still a lot of like the sales comp side, right? Like, what's the price per door? What did the one next door sell to? But, you can also sell it to the investor that's going to look and say, okay, what is it renting for, right? If I wholesale a single family house there may or may not be a renter in place. A duplex, significantly more likely that it's going to be rented, and it's going to be a slightly different criteria and buyer. So I'm sitting here in like a really interesting position trying to like figure out where to go next and kind of what to do, where I thought it was going to be like, hey, come down wholesale, build up this business, grind for 6 months, and then bring somebody in to do it for you. And I tried grinding and I don't like it. So
it's I think that's a natural progression, right? You're not waving the white flag, which is what's going to separate you from most people. They're on to the next thing. They're trading cryptocurrency. They're doing something that, they're probably going to not like that either. Being aware of that is important. That's probably what gets you to the finish line. That's probably what gets you to the finish line, to whatever you're deciding to do. But I completely understand that, right? Because there's a level of trying to find that niche. You're also in a market with one of the largest single family flippers in the country, right? And it's like a pie, right? Their marketing dollars are way more than you're going to throw at marketing. So you're going to pay more than them unless they know something about the market that you don't, which in that case, you're probably going to pay less than them. Mm-hmm. So you're already scratched. So you're dealing with the worst of the worst, right? You're dealing with the people that they didn't want to deal with, and or they don't have to, right? They have enough deal flow. Simultaneous in your market, if you could find that niche of wholesaling that works, like for instance, I have a buddy, Matt McQuarrie, who's really progressed, and he's doing 1 acre to 3 acre lots that he could put a mobile home on it. And, you're all in 40, 50 grand and you're listing them at 185. Like, that's an interesting space. This is the first time I've said this publicly. Now people will download this and hear this, but it's something that I spoke about it in the office. I want to dig down on this, because I think that product, if you can get an unwanted piece of property, and in Jacksonville, there's a large amount of mobile homes, so you could probably find it and do it in rural parts of Duval County is not that rural, but it gets rural as you go further out. Mm-hmm. But if you can really find a niche in a space that you may not like, but if you combine the two things you're good at, right? Well, I don't really want to negotiate with sellers, so let me find the people that just don't want their properties. Let that property fit a need, affordable housing and or space, so they're not stuck in an apartment complex or something like that. And if you could set that up, you probably have a really successful business. And that's where I try and think differently, right? There's all different coaching programs out there, from, CEO level, set up your businesses, to, learn how to sell stuff on drop shipping. I think the courses and coaches and mentors, as you pay more, you probably get a little bit of a better quality. But I think if you can take the foundation of anything and fit it into what is where you can do really well. Another example of that is on the land, right? You can sort by opportunity zones and 5 vacant land that you could improve more than you paid. You have a really good sales pitch to investors, or to yourself, or to situations where I'm never going to sell that property, although I have this alternative, it could work. So I think that's where you'll have more success, is that one, knowing you don't like doing this, so you find someone you can partner with, or two, taking enough education to set up a foundation to then turn the lights off, take out a pen and paper, or, turn the computer down and say, okay, let me brainstorm some stuff here. Let me throw some shit at the wall and let me see what I fall in love with, right? You don't want to buy a single family house. So anything that you were to put under contract is going to be a wholesale. That, that, right? You have no interest. But yes, a duplex is not much different, but it is, right? There's something that you may be able to do with that you couldn't do with a single family house. So figuring out that puzzle is difficult, right? You've been down in Jacksonville for about 2.5, 3 months now. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're slowly going through, okay, well, I want to do this and I want to grind, but I could probably do it differently. And then those aren't bad thoughts. Those are thoughts that everyone has in this business. I mean, there are days, listen, January 1st came around, I decided to lose weight, but I also know that if I don't buy a deal, what am I, the deals we own are the only ways of making money. So I think that everyone in this space has to, you get that feeling of uneasiness a little bit. Like, okay, am I really using my time productively, or am I really just putting stuff on the back burner for later? Because your main business right now is making sure your 16 unit works. So when you incorporate anything in there, if it's not time blocking, if it's not allocating days for certain tasks, it's tough to incorporate the other things. And they're very easy. Real estate is the easiest thing in the world to say, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it tomorrow. And next thing you know, 6 months later, you never get to it because, you might say, okay, from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock today, I'm driving for dollars. But then a tenant calls you, you happen to be in the area. You're like, oh, you know what? Let me go figure that problem out. As opposed to saying, I'll be in the area at 4, right? And do what you got to do for 3, from 2 to 3. And that's where real estate investors fail. And that's where businesses go sideways. It's when you don't take the time out of your day to do the things that you are looking to accomplish, as opposed to being reactive, as opposed to proactive.
Mm-hmm. No, I think the last stuff you said is really interesting, because I've definitely found in the last couple weeks, like a little bit more scattered of like running here, running there, and having some inefficiencies in what I'm doing. And some of it is just by, the nature of having to, right? If you've got to meet a contractor out at the property, it is what it is, right? They've got a schedule, you've got a schedule. It doesn't always line up exactly. So you got to make it work to be flexible somewhat. If somebody's got a leak, like you can't wait until, if today's Monday, you can't wait until Friday, because that's your time block, right? You've got to, some things you've got to have a little bit of a give and take. But it's definitely different when you're dealing with people and housing and management than like when you're just sitting in and doing asset management, because you can, if you wait an extra couple of days to get back to insurance, it's not the end of the world. You wait an extra couple of days to get back to, the lender, it's probably not the end of the world. You wait a couple of days to get back to a tenant, that is a little bit of a different story. And depending, right, it's not always the end of the world. But it is just a different scenario. So it's definitely something that I've noticed. And that's why, when I came down and said, hey, I'm going to build out the management arm for my company, I always thought my first hire would be a maintenance guy. If it was like one person, then a second person. Now I'm actually flipping around saying, okay, any deal I underwrite is going to be with slightly higher increased maintenance costs. One, if that ever goes down, the deal is only going to perform better, right? If I bring someone in-house and they can do it, there's just more money to the NOI. So it works with a higher cost, that's better. Two, bringing somebody in first on the property management side as like a manager or a leasing person, whatever it is going to free up my time and allow me to be a little bit more structured, where I'm not the one who's going to have to run out to do X, or I'm not going to have to talk to the plumber to do Y. It's just going to allow me a little bit more of that freedom to work on other things, and, obviously higher dollar per hour tasks as well, instead of, doing a 15-hour, $15 per hour job, or 20, whatever it is. So it's interesting to say that, because I've definitely experienced it in the last couple of months, and it's like trying to get these last couple pieces in line to get the renovations going has just been like very tedious. Like I'm trying to right now, and I always knew this was going to be a bigger undertaking because nobody does it. And I understand why, but we wanted to clean up all the cabling on the exterior of the building from the internet companies. Luckily, only one tenant is AT&T, everybody's Comcast. But trying to get the Comcast guys back out, they came out once, to get them out again has been tough. I've called them like 5 times and just haven't heard anything back. So it's like, at what point do you say screw it and do what you can versus working with them? So it's like, some of those things, it's just been interesting to see the last 2 to 4 weeks.
So I talk about this all the time, even on our mobile home stuff, right? It's setting boundaries, because listen, Jonathan Farber, he sends out after John's podcast, or at least he did for me. I don't know if he did for anyone, the book Free to Focus. And I put it on the side for literally probably a year.
Didn't send it to me.
There you go. So, bitch at him.
Yeah, I'm going to.
So, if you've never read the book Free to Focus, do it. At the end of last year, I went into like I want to have a huge 2021. So I read the book, and it's so Free to Focus, in my opinion, is traction in a 12-week year in like 100 pages, as opposed to 400 pages. So you could tell they all come from the same school of thought. They just, they call it different nicknames. At the end of the day, I think all three books are great. And if you could take a piece of each of them and implement, it's great. But the one thing that they talk about is that it's like anything else. Very rarely in any one of our lives, I will even include doctors. And, how often is there an emergency that needs your attention immediately, right? Like the world's going to end if you don't answer your phone or do what you're supposed to do. And, horrible accident, guy gets airlifted in, needs a heart, he's dead, but the heart can be given to somebody else. Even that has time from airlift, right? Now the doctor has to get to the hospital. I understand that stuff. But the point is that if you look at your schedule on there's 5 hours, right? And I think we had someone on a podcast and I forgot who it was, and I'm sorry, but they talk about like how much time you have left to live if you go by averages. But if you look at your 5 days of your work week, if you sat there and said, like you said, because I do the same thing, you put things on the back burner and they accumulate and then you don't get to half the things. And we spoke about earlier today with I forgot her name already, which is horrible. The net worth nurse.
Yeah, Savannah.
If you win and you win 75 to 80% of your week, you're going to be very successful. But if you look at your week and say, okay, my Monday's afternoon, I'm taking a 4-hour block of time for myself, right? And I'm going to database. I'm going to drive. I'm going to only deal with sellers during that period of time or only deal with buyers. You're going to lose opportunities. But just like the Billy Alvaro podcast episode, you put people through hurdles and challenges. And when they get to the finish line, they're so primed that your transactional headaches and the bullshit you put up with is gone, right? If people know that Chris has office hours between 3 and 5 on a Monday, and that's the phone they call your office phone, after enough time and training and teaching your tenants and teaching your potential sellers and buyers that this is your time, yeah, they can go out and find something from somebody else. But it's a way to take that business and really put in valuable hours as opposed to more hours that are unvaluable. Because I think there was a study, and I don't know what book this was, but in Europe, they don't work 40-hour weeks. They work like 36. And I think Henry Ford in the United States was the first one to do this, that I think the work week used to be 6 days a week. And then he gave a double day off and people were more productive. And inevitably after the assembly line and stuff like that, I think Ford employees were only working like 36 hours a week or something like that. And their productivity went up significantly because when they were working, they were working. There was no distractions, as opposed to your 40-hour week, which has 20 hours of distractions or a tenant call or, you know what? This guy's called me 4 times. He's not really a real seller yet. I don't want to deal with him, right? So I think that compartmentalizing or time blocking or using your week to your advantage can get you over a lot of those hurdles of that productivity or putting stuff on the back burner. And that's where I see a ton of value. And I've started doing it this year. And, even through the first 31 days or 32 days of 2021, I find myself turning my computer down earlier. Now I get to enjoy more time with my daughter. But also when I leave the office, I just feel like I've done so much more than I used to, where I used to, sometimes, you work till 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. And then you're like, I always have more work. It's like nothing gets done. Now I feel like I can get, now I'm home. So, no commuting, no stopping for a bagel, stopping for Starbucks. You're home. So you pick up a lot of time. But at the same time, I feel like I'm winding down and that's it, right? I don't care. If someone calls me at 8:30, you know what? You either have a predefined point that we're going to interact, or I'll call you tomorrow. And nothing's really gone completely off the deep end. So it's something I've been trying to preach and tell and, read a book, see if you like it or try it. But I think that's a way that anyone listening or any investor or even someone new moving to a new market can try new strategies without it deviating from things they're doing and eating into their productivity time in what they do really well. It's probably something that I would recommend or at least advise on people giving a shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed too, and I think that's all great. 2 things for me is I know I have way more productive days when I do like sit down for 15 minutes and plan out my day, like time chunk, go through what I'm going to do each step of the way, and just be like, okay, like here it is, here's what we're doing, and like plan out little breaks, 20-minute breaks, 15-minute breaks, 30-minute breaks, 45 for lunch, maybe an hour, whatever it is. I've also noticed too, something I need to change is like, I have a Calendly link just to like talk to people for 30 minutes, but I use it for everybody. And I really need to create better segments and be like, okay, here's somebody that reached out that wants to pick my brain. It's Thursdays in these 2 hours. So it's like, okay, I'm only doing these calls at this time. And it's not like randomly on a Friday at 3:30, I've now got to pick up the call and talk to someone. Not that it's bad, but it's just, if I'm in the flow or doing something else, now I've got to break from that to get on the call. And then it's like, then I've got to, after the call, I've got to like revamp to where I was going, and it's just lost time. It's not even a 30-minute call. It's the time before and after that you lose too. So like, I know for me, I love Calendly. It's awesome. But I need to do a better job at like, hey, here's the link for newer investors picking my brain. Here's the link for networking. Here's the link for brokers here, you know, like having different segments and like picking times throughout the week so that it's like, okay, I know Thursday mornings from 9 to 11, that's when I'm doing these calls. And like, I just get into the office and that's what I'm doing for 2 hours. And if I don't have any calls, okay, then it's just free time to do whatever, but I don't have to worry about somebody that I sent a link to on Thursday at 4 p.m. signing up for something the following morning when I've already got stuff to do. Cause that's sometimes I like send it. I'm like, hey, don't, you know, I'll send it on like a Wednesday and it's like, hey, don't sign up for anything this week because I've got shit to do. But they see all these open times. Like most of the time they respect that and they do it. But like once in a while I'll get the person, and sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to ask them to reschedule. I'll just do it. But you know, sometimes I will. So it's just like, I've recognized that for me as well. It's like, I've got to segment out days and times better for some of those conversations and networking and grabbing coffee. Because even now, like coming to Jacksonville, one of my bigger focuses has been networking with as many people as I can, but I'm just doing it at like all these random hours and times and whatever. And some of that you have to, right? Like if you're trying to meet with somebody, sometimes you got to go to them and on their schedule. And it's not always the easiest thing, but it's also like, you know, it drags me out and about sometimes where it's like, you know, really interrupts the day or what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, and I think managing a calendar is one of the most underutilized tools and most talked about tools that anyone talks about. And, you know, the simple Calendly thing, you know, when I first had it, you know, it was great. I had like a 10-minute, a 30-minute, and then you don't use it, right? And then you just start marking stuff off in your Google Calendar, whatever you use. And, you know, that's one thing that anyone can start tomorrow that probably would be exponentially make them more productive, because I personally believe that time blocking component is super important. Like you said, whether it's I'm talking to brokers here, I'm networking here, you know, now apps like Clubhouse, right? Like, you know, the notifications I get, I'm like, oh, let me listen in. And next thing you know, I'm invited up as a speaker, right? So it's like, if you allocate the time research, now something pops up, things change, and we all understand you got to be a little bit flexible, but you're right. You know, next thing you know, a 10-minute introductory investor call turns into an hour and a half of unproductivity, right? So if you can build out, and one of the things that it talks about in Free to Focus, which I love, and I'm not, and you know this, and everybody that listens to the podcast, I'm not an automation guy. I'm not a technology guy, but it actually talks about in there really simple automations that you can integrate quickly. And we're not talking about super detailed stuff, right? Just little things that just free up so much time, that like redundancy of what you do. Like, you know, you could probably think of 10 email responses that you send to people every day. And if you have them as templates, just easy as click, copy, paste, right? Like something like that, build out 10 emails. Like, oh, you know, now Google does some of it for you, right? Like the little auto, which is great. That's basically all I click now, right? Because I can't spell or type or read. So like when it comes up, I'm like, oh, great, boom, sent it off, right? So, but like little things like that just saves you so much time. Because if it takes, you know, if you do the stupid math, right? If I send the same email to 10 people every day and it takes 10 minutes, multiply, look how many hours you throw away when that's hours that could be used in productive time. So I think it's important. I think that, you know, you got to put your hands in a lot of cookie jars to find the cookie you like. But when you do, I think the biggest thing that I suck at that I want to do better at is when I find something I like, I'm a visionary, right? I have big visions and I want to build it out. I need someone to integrate it better, right? So it's like, I found a really cool thing. Let me find the right person. Let me tell them my visions, let them put it on paper, and let's go get it. And then let me go do what I do really well. And I think that's where, I love when people want to take the integration role and build things out, because I have the ideas. I can build them out on paper, but I like people to put the systems in place and me sit back and make sure it's going well. I do that well. And that's why I'm so opportunistic. Someone has a deal, someone has an opportunity, and I can fit myself in. And that's really what I'm looking to build out, not buying more multifamily, buying more land or mobile home parks. I love those things and I'm going to. But what I'm really looking to build out, especially this year, is how I can add value to people's situations and scale that situation in addition to, replicating the multifamily, replicating the mobile, and replicating the land. That's where I really want to. That's really what my passion is. It's okay, Chris, you want to do wholesaling? Okay, great. Let's do it, right? How do we do it? Who do we have to hire and how can I help? And that could be Chris. That could be anyone listening to this podcast. That's really my passion. I don't want to say helping people because my wife would tell me that I don't like to help anybody, but the piece of me that says if I can help and make money by bringing the experience or my knowledge to the table, well, give me 5%, right? I'll do anything I possibly can because it's another revenue stream and it's something I have passion for. And, little tips like a book like Free to Focus or whatever it may be, time blocking, something like that. I think everyone should take those tips and see how they can integrate it into their own life and see where it falls to see what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And I think that was always something when we were working together, just the idea, the big picture and driven stuff was definitely always something you were good at and focused on, but actually putting the necessary systems in place wasn't always the forte and the strong point. So I think it just comes back to like that self-awareness piece. And I think bringing it full circle again, when I am sitting here trying to figure out what to do for, 10 to 30 hours a week outside of what I'm already doing, it's the same concept of like, I had an idea, let's give it a go and figure it out. But, let's shift as it's not quite right. Like I'm trying to be super thoughtful about where am I going to get the best experience and best bang for my buck and the most enthusiasm to build it out for the long term? Because I could force myself to grind in things that I don't like, but I'd rather grind in things that I like better, or I'm going to be more enjoyable about. And having the conversation with the apartment owner, just like doing the podcast, right? I'll just talk to him about apartments and renting and stuff like that. Talking to the single family owner that's rented a house, that's owned a home for 20 years and got it from their family and passed down. Like I can do that, but it just doesn't interest me as much. And I think that's one thing I'm always hyper aware of. And we always talked about a ton is like the competitive advantage aspect of it. What do you bring to the table that's going to make you competitive or give you that edge? And that's where you're talking about one of the largest flippers in the country, potentially. You're 100% right. Like, how am I going to beat these guys out on marketing dollars, touch points, what I'm going to purchase it for? The only thing is they may have more overhead, so they may need wider margins, but even if it's not, it could also go the other way. They'll take thinner margins because they're doing more volume. I don't really know, but those are the things I think about. Exactly. Like but it was okay. Let's pick something and try it. And that's why now I'm starting to be like, okay, this isn't quite going to work, but maybe there's a path where somebody can come in and help and it'll be close, or it'll be a fraction of it. And maybe it's not quite what I set out to do, but maybe it can be something similar. And now it's looking at other options that are available that do better fit, because the only way to really know is to try something. And I think
without a doubt,
that's something that we've always done is like, hey, let's try it. Let's go. Even if it's like just going down the rabbit hole of research, but then figuring out that, hey, this isn't quite the right fit. Like we looked at Airbnb arbitrage for 4 to 6 months and talked about it. I mean, we had a few people in the office. We talked about it, really researched it. And then we just kind of said don't know, it doesn't feel quite right. And probably luckily we didn't do it when COVID hit, because in the areas we were looking at, we probably would have gotten smoked.
Oh, for sure.
But I think that whole concept of like, it's just, I think a lot of people feel like they need to figure it out on the first go. And if it doesn't work, it's a failure. It's not a failure. It's a pivot. I mean, have I failed to wholesale a home? Yes. I don't consider it a failure in the grand scheme of things.
No, I personally don't believe in failures. Not like I don't believe in the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus or anything like that. But
You don't?
no, I have a strong belief in Santa Claus. Don't say anything to anybody. I don't believe in failure. I think failure is good, right? There's all these stupid, failure is not an option and all these stupid quotes out there. But at the end of the day, just because you failed at something, listen, I'm not a professional baseball player. It was the biggest failure of my life. Mm-hmm. If you would have asked me 20 years ago, right? I wanted to be a baseball player, but that taught me so many lessons to do what I've been able to do. And just like you said, yeah, have you flipped a house or wholesaled a house? No, not yet. Maybe not ever, but you know that those are things that you may or may not want to do, or you have to find the right person. So that failure opened the door to the knowledge piece on the other side of the other side of that. So I don't think, you could fail a million times, but it takes one idea, thought, concept, or good partner to be very successful at whatever that next idea is. And you can't just say, I have no more ideas. I'm just going to go work at Starbucks, or I'm going to go be a leasing agent or something like that. Like, that's fine. Nothing wrong with it. But if you have that entrepreneurial background, be prepared to make some stupid choices, and hopefully it doesn't ruin your life, right? Like people do. But if you just sit back, do your research, ask yourself good questions, and then build on top of that, that failure could be the most successful thing that you've done. So I love what you said. I think it makes a ton of sense, but you can't let failure stop you, right? Just get the fuck up and, brush your clothes off and go at it, right? You get knocked down, get back up again. It's just, that's just how the nature of the entrepreneur works.
Yeah. I mean, I don't look at the time and money I've spent as a waste. I view it as a quick lesson in what I don't want to be doing. Because I would much rather spend time and money today to realize it's not what I want to be doing for the future than force it. And then in 3 years, I've built a business or small business. I've got people working for me, and I just absolutely hate it. I hate getting up and going to work. I hate dealing with the people. I hate dealing with the sellers. Like, do I think that would be the case? No, because I think if I were to bring in people, it would be a little bit different. But I don't really know. I just know it's not what I want to be doing for the next 6 months. So what is that worth? For me, it's worth a hell of a lot, right? Exactly. My happiness, my peace of mind is extremely valuable. So yeah, I've spent several $1,000s in literal money and in time, if not more. And and probably more in opportunity cost, right? But for me, it was an ability to understand what I do and don't want to do, because I love the idea of building a wholesaling company, right? The idea of being a successful wholesaler and doing all these deals a month and making all this ton of money is great, right? I think everybody would agree they like the idea of that, or most people would, especially if you're involved in real estate. But I think there's a big difference between liking the idea and liking the process and the actual building of that thing, which is always a pretty big disconnect between the two.
I think that's a great. People have to understand that, without a doubt, is that the liking the idea and the process behind the idea is make or break, right? Everyone wants to be a successful wholesaler, wholesaling 5,000 houses, but at the end of the day, the steps process that you have to do that might not be something you like. And understanding that relationship is half the battle.
100%. But we are kind of up against the clock right now. We both got calls we got to jump on. But this was awesome. Definitely need to do it more. And like we said at the beginning, guys, please reach out. Let us know what you think about these episodes. Just John and I, if you like them, if you don't like them, or just any feedback in general. We don't always get a ton of feedback by doing podcasts. Obviously, it's really just the two of us chatting shop right now. No real feedback. So if you listen to this, or if you listen to the future, whether you like something or don't like something, always let us know, because it's super interesting. And also, if you're not subscribed, please do so. If you haven't left a review, please do so. If you haven't sent it to somebody, please do so. We don't really do a ton, but obviously we'd love to get the word out. So that's really it.
Exactly. Everything Chris said, right? We love any feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. It's just fun. Whether people like it or not, we're going to continue to fucking do it. So you better start liking it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So thank you guys for listening. Have a good one.